favourite shows or join the team at sport-social.co.uk.
Hello, welcome back to the Masterclass, the Manchester United Tactical Podcast. This is the pre-season preview. It is a new season, Rob, 2021-22 season. Manchester United have just won 4-0 against Everton. I'm really excited, Rob. I'm honestly so excited for the season to start. It's been probably since Sir Alex that I haven't been as excited for a season to start. United have made some great moves. Today we look energetic, we look vibrant, only pre-season. But I'm really positive going into the season. I believe in the lads. I think there's some really good team, chemistry, and there's really good team spirit. Ollie's building a really great squad. So welcome back. How are you feeling as well going into the season?
Well, I'm feeling good, Haider, and hello to all of our audience here today on the Masterclass. A good performance against Everton, but it's a pre-season game. So as I always say, don't get too high, don't get too low. That sounds like a cliche. It is. But in this case, it's true. You see what before the game, people were saying this game really matters. Well, what we really want to see is that the guys are getting fitter. So, yeah, I'm also really excited about this season going forward. Who could not be excited at the signings of Jadon, Sancho and Raphael Varane? I think two players that are going to help take United to the next level. But the good thing that we saw today, that when the first teamers came in, that they all looked relatively fit and relatively ready to go. And in that first half, there were some really positive things. Forget the scoreline today. Everton were garbage. They turned up. They helped us have a bit of a workout. We gave them a little bit of a workout. And we're both trying to get ready for a Premier League season. But I think what's really promising is that there was little things we saw today, which we'll talk about because this show is about nuance and about tactics. And we'll talk about individuals. And there were some really promising things that we saw today, especially in that first 45 minutes from a couple of players. And yeah, I'm quietly confident about what Manchester United can achieve this season.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are sharing, the sort of positivity going into the season, Rob. We've got a nice comment here saying, liking the retro kit that you're wearing. If you're listening to this on audio, Rob's got a nice little retro kit on. Look, Rob, I think one of the positive things is that we're seeing certain players who perhaps, on the Masterclass we have been critical of. We saw them play well. So I don't want to start with Donny van der Beek, because I think what's really important to say about Donny van der Beek is that last season we spoke in length, and we had one side saying, he needs to play more, the other side saying that he's just not ready to play deep in the Premier League. Let's talk about him, because I've seen him come back to pre-season. He's definitely bulked up. He's definitely got a great attitude. He's definitely looks like someone who has a point to prove. And we saw today as he played deep in the double pivot next to them, Nemanja Matic. And for me, that's probably, I wouldn't say it was spectacular today, but that was probably the best I've seen Donny van der Beek play in the deep position. And the reason why I say that, he didn't do anything spectacular on the ball, Rob, but it was a positional awareness and the understanding of what you have to do for that role. In the 4-2-3-1, you have to be functional. That's the first step. That's why McFred play instead of Donny van der Beek. And he was functional. His understanding of the role, what he had to do off the ball was very good today. There were times where perhaps his positioning wasn't there. There were times where he did let his man go. I remember for the Iwobi shot. But apart from that, has he forced his way into reckoning to play in that position against Leeds?
Well, as you like to say, Haider, one of your famous little catchphrases, a small sample size. And we're seeing Donny van der Beek now play twice in pre-season, playing in the double pivot. So let's rewind 12 months and kind of review why Donny van der Beek has not played maybe the minutes that United fans want to see him play. He's played plenty of games last year. I think he featured in 36 games across the season, obviously cup competitions in the Premier League, and obviously also still playing for Haaland when he had the opportunity and when he was fit. What we were seeing with Donny van der Beek really was a confusion about the transition of going from Dutch football to English football. And then the confusion of playing maybe in a midfield three to then playing in a more kind of conventional 4-2-3-1 that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer plays virtually every week. And he did not deal with that transition well, both physically and mentally. Now, if we take this small sample size that we're talking about now in pre-season and say, let's just talk about today in the 45 minutes against Everton, there is something very, very different about what he's doing. So in the position with the double pivot, you saw today he played with Matic. Now, he's quite unlikely to play with Matic through the season. It will almost definitely be someone like Fred, might even be Pogba at times. And of course, we know Scott McTominay plays plenty of minutes. But what was he doing differently? Well, you could see today that with the double pivot, and as we've said it before, the double pivot isn't two defensive midfielders. We'll say it again. It's one where one sits and one goes, and then they compensate. And the other thing that the double pivot does, which we don't talk about a lot, is actually when one is central, the other one will quite often go wider into a wider channel to stretch the play, allow you to have more options for the ball to move. He did that today. So when Matic was in the middle, Van der Beek went right, and he went forward and he came inside. So he played the pivot technically correctly. He was not doing that last year. He wasn't doing that at all. He lacked mobility, he lacked strength, he lacked timing, he lacked physicality. Now, there's no doubt he's put on a few pounds of muscle. You can see that the first game we saw him back, he's just bulked up a little bit more stronger. He doesn't need to be the Incredible Hulk. He just needs to be able to hold his own when maybe he's challenged or on the ball. And I think, as you said at the top of the show, and you said also off camera, we look at kind of Donny van der Beek in the double pivot. You're not really supposed to be spectacular. You're not supposed to be eye-catching. You're supposed to do the function which allows the team to be eye-catching and spectacular. And you saw in that first half today, Manchester United scored the goals against Everton, a poor Everton team in terms of how they played. But what was really, really promising, in a way, thing that I was really excited about, was seeing that this 4-2-3-1 is a progressive system. And I say this all the time, and people either laugh or they mock or they say they just disagree.
Said last week, Rob.
Exactly. So you can play 4-2. Yeah, you can play 4-2-3-1, and yes, you can get upset about McTominay and Fred, like people do every week. Same old gripes over and over and over again. But you've got to have options, haven't you? And players have got to do the function. So today, Donny van der Beek did the function. Could he do it on day one against Leeds when maybe the tempo goes up even another level? That's another question to answer. But I think the good thing to see today, and it's good for Ole, is that he's seeing this player is getting it up here. Yeah, he's fixing it in his head to actually play the function of the double pivot. It does not mean that you forget your core skill base. It doesn't mean that because you're a number 10 in your head that you can't do progressive things because you're playing as a number 6. This is not real. That's not football. Not when the ball's on the deck. It's not really about that, And I heard today some people saying about the game's about triangles and the game's about how the opportunities that you get and how you make them. It's not really about all that either. It's more than anything. It's about cohesion and chemistry. So today, Donny van der Beek was part of a really good Man United team that played well for 45 minutes, and he did it in the double pivot, while being mobile, whilst being able to pass the ball, keeping it accurate, and doing all the things that he was not doing last season. And do you know what? That's on him. Last year was on him. He got opportunities. He didn't get great opportunities, but that was because he wasn't taking the chances that he was getting. If he carries on doing this in training, Donny van der Beek's going to start matches. If he does this, what we saw today, he will be in contention, not just for the first game, but he will start 30 games next season as opposed to maybe starting 6 or 7. And he'll give Ole an option of having a midfielder in there that can do different things to Fred and McTominay.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I think, Rob, we've never doubted Donny van der Beek's ability. That's never been in question. We all know he's an intelligent player. We all know that he's great on the ball. He's got good one ball. The biggest issue for me last season, and that's why I said I had doubts about him, whether he would transition into the Premier League. And I said that very, very recently, that the money had come in for Donny van der Beek, 30 million, let's say, I would have sold him. And what I'm actually quite surprised to see him come back and put in a performance like this, playing deep. Because I've said time and time again, I really do have doubts. But the biggest thing for me, I mentioned it, is in there. He's thinking. It's a bit like Luke Shaw. He's playing the game in there. It's today, Wan-Bissaka was good today, but there are times, still where he was not playing with his head, and he was, leaving space on the inside. What I will say though about Donny van der Beek, and it's actually quite an interesting stat. I read an article the other day, and when he played in the double pivot last season, he passed the ball forward less than Fred and McTominay. That's a fact. So that's absolutely crazy. And you would think that Van der Beek is a more progressive player than those two. But that's what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer looked at last season. Come forward this season, the amount of times he played the ball forward, the first time to Bruno Fernandes, we didn't see him doing that last season. And that's important for Manchester United. And that's what I want to see from the players playing the double pivot. We've had this discussion a lot of times, but I want to see more progression. I want to see them looking to pass the ball forward. Like you said, if Donny van der Beek can do that, the Manchester United have almost got like a brand new signing. I know it's such a cliche to say, but he hardly contributed last season, really. And he could save United 40, 50 million. Looking to buy a player in the deep. But Rob, let's move on to Martial, because Anthony Martial had a really difficult season last season. If we're both honest, we lost a little bit of faith in him. He had a fantastic season the season before, and he went into last season and he just looked completely off. Goals dried up. It seemed that he almost wasn't fit as well, and I think he's looking fitter this season. He's obviously come back, worked hard in pre-season. Where's your mind at with Martial? Because I've kind of thought that United obviously have got Cavani for another year. Mason's looking bigger. He's looking, he's filled out a bit more. I think he wants to play number 9. We're not going to sign a striker this year. There's talks of Haaland, maybe for next season. Does Martial have one more chance now to make that number 9 spot his own?
Of course he does. 100%. I always say you're only as good as your last day on a football pitch. So, people can reflect on Martial's season last year. He's not actually played football since March. So when you actually look at that kind of time frame to where we are now with the new season, it's a long time to not really play because of your injuries. So he's been out of the frame. So when you're out of the frame and you come back in, then of course you've just got to prove yourself all over again. So let's compare that also to Donny van der Beek. So Van der Beek also had a bit of an injury at the end of the season. Obviously, it kept him out of the Euros. And during that time, then when you've got a bit of downtime, you've got to kind of work on your deficiencies so they're not glaring when you get back out on the football pitch. And that's always the hardest thing. So I think when you look at Anthony Martial, does he have an opportunity this season? Well, with Jadon Sancho at the football club, of course he does, because he's now got an elite player who can create for him on the outside of him. Now, we could talk about where you want to play Mason Greenwood going forward, and I think Mason's going to play plenty of the same position as he did last year. I know fans dream of him being the number 9. He will play number 9 at times, but in general, I don't think he will, especially while Marcus Rashford is injured. But when you look at kind of Martial, he's still the guy of being the primary number 9 along with Cavani. And that's your main option, I think, week to week. But then, of course, in training, it's up to Anthony Martial to prove it to the manager. And this is why, we talked about Van der Beek there and about we thought he might be sold. And we said that in the context of him really not being involved with the minutes. So, we kind of look at the minutes that he was being afforded by Ole. But the truth, again, is that if Ole's seen this player in the last month or two really kind of do what he needed to do, take the instruction on, bulk up, work in the gym, get faster, get more mobile, get more English, because you do need to be like that in the Premier League. You need to show a bit of physicality along with your kind of technical skills. Then you can do it. And I think when you look at Martial, he definitely looked trimmer to me today. I thought he looked really mobile. He was dropping nicely into the pocket. And when you actually look at one or two of the goals for United and one or two of the real main attacking moments, he was actually doing the dog's work of the number 9. He was making the run towards the front post, allowing Luke Shaw to either cross over the back and to the top or to find it at the edge and spreading the Everton defence out. So that's part of the game. Again, I don't know if fans always appreciate those things. They just look for goals. If you score a goal, then box ticked and I'm happy because you're the number 9, you scored a goal and I'm happy. But I think with Martial, he needs to add more things to his game to help those around him. And that's a big part of it, is that if he's going to be part of this squad this season, I think he will be, then he needs to contribute by bringing others into the game and helping them score goals. And that way, Man United will win more matches.
Rob, a comment here saying that once Rashford comes back, Mason won't be out on the right. It'll be Sancho, but Oli wants the 3 front men switching, so it's not as important. That's a good comment there. And you actually think about it, that it looks like, well, do you know what's happening with Rashford? Is he going to go and have that surgery?
He is, yes. He's going to have that. He's going to have the surgery. And just in reference to that comment, I do actually think you'll see Sancho play right and left. I think there'll be plenty of times. It is this anomaly that United have had this problem on the right forever. They've gone and bought an elite right-sided forward. However, when you really look at the stats, that right-sided forward plays on the left quite a lot. So, and has done for the last 12 months and 24 months. So I think you might find that Mason will still slot in that right-hand side. Why? Because he works quite well with Wan-Bissaka. We've said this before in terms of their tandem. And then you might see that the need is on the left because, with missing Rashford on that side, or say Dan James is injured and not cutting it or something like that, you might see Sancho on the left. So I don't think you're going to just automatically see Mason through the middle because Sancho's joined the football club.
I agree with that, Rob. And something to add as well with Mason, we've spoken it before, something he needs to improve on is playing with his back to goal. He's going to play number 9. I think that comes with time and it comes with experience in that role. It comes with, filling out. So he's still only a kid, to be honest with you. But something that he does have, which is a massive benefit for him, is when he cuts in and shoots from the right, he's very, very good at that. He's a great finisher. So, United could be starting the season with Sancho left, Mason right, and Martial up top. And that's an exciting front three, isn't it? I mean, that's if Martial can get the goals back, and I've lost a bit of faith in Martial, but I think I hope he's gonna have a big season. That's a really fluid front three for Manchester United.
Yeah, look, if Martial scores 5 or 6 goals in his first 10 games of the season, that lack of faith suddenly is back, isn't it? So it's so fragile, that context, because fans get excited by what they see on the moment, and if the moment excites them, then they're happy again. So you've got to kind of look at it a little bit more long term. Is Anthony Martial the right striker for Manchester United for 12 months, for 24 months and going forward? They're bigger questions, and we'll kind of answer those throughout the season. But I do think that when you kind of look at what Mason needs to do, like you were just saying, they're playing with his back to goal. I don't believe that at all. I think, again, that's very old school. Strikers don't need to play with their back to goal anymore. What's more important is playing within transition and playing between the lines and making sure that you know what you're doing in the channel. So I think when you look at Mason, one of his strengths is what you just said there. When he's on the right, he cuts back on his left. I also think that's one of his weaknesses. Why? Like today, you saw it. He could have gone on his right side today in that right channel, take one touch, hit it with your right. What did he do? He held the play up. He tried to come in on his left and he made a mess of it. Now, that's inexperience. An experienced striker takes that on, one step, bang, hits it, dead. At least you hit the target. So for us, when you look at Mason, fantastic talent. We know what he is. We know what he's made of. Yes, brilliant coming in on his left foot. He can't do that every time he gets the ball. It's just stupid. It doesn't work. So I think with Mason, it's not really about learning having his back to goal. It's about maybe just being more clinical in the moment there. And we know he's a clinical striker. We know that he can do that. But I think that, again, I will say football's played up here in your brain. It's not necessarily played just in reaction. You've got to kind of go and train and think about it and then find a way on the football pitch. And with Mason, he needs to work that right channel. That's his job. Whether he's even the striker, he will be moving into the right channel all the time. And if he is the striker, he'll also be moving into the left channel. Football is now about playing between the lines and the channels. It's like noughts and crosses. Yeah, it's kind of when you look at a football pitch down from a drone angle, football is now turned into kind of game of noughts and crosses, and you've got to kind of work the pitch out in that way in your head when you're down on it. And I think when you look at Mason, that's for me what I want to see from him. I don't want to see him become Romelu Lukaku. He's not going to become that kind of striker. That's not the number 9 he is. I want him to be mobile, be in the channels and link up with Sancho in that way. You see, and it doesn't mean that he can play number 9 or he could be on the other side. It's just a case of actually doing the right things on the football pitch at the right time.
Rob, you're getting some love here. I can listen to Rob all day. So, guys, keep your comments coming. Thank you very much. We will be back, by the way. We are going to be back regularly. The season's now starting, so you will see us every single week. So do not worry if you think that we're just going to do one show and then we're going to vanish again. So, Rob, we've got a couple of questions here. Let's address it. So I kind of want to address them together before. What we will do, guys, is we'll go and talk about the Leeds game and sort of how United will set up. And we will talk about our title aspirations as well. There's a lot of questions about midfield. So I want to just address them sort of together. So there's a good comment here saying, sort of after seeing the performance stage, do we actually need a midfielder? I know Matic is getting on a bit. I was impressed with Matic today. We always say it, don't we, that if Matic is 5 years younger, then United would be in a really great position here. Another question saying, do you think we'll sign a midfielder? And then let's add Paul Pogba into the mix because Paul Pogba has always spoken about. I just want to say quickly about Paul Pogba today. It's his first game back since sort of pre-season. He's going to look rusty. Anyone that's saying, oh, he just wants to run his contract down, all this sort of rubbish, is just nonsense. It's going to take players time to get up to speed. We've seen when players come back, sometimes it takes them 2, 3, 4 games to do that. I don't see Paul Pogba starting Rob against Leeds. He's not ready. And at the end of the day, looking at Matic today, I liked what I saw from Matic today. We know what he can offer. Unfortunately for Manchester United and for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Nemanja Matic can play maybe one game a week, if that. Maybe it's 2 a month. He just can't play regularly. So I'm not sure you can rely on him. So where are we with the midfielder as well? There's a lot of reports of Ruben Neves. There's Saul Niguez as well. There's players being mentioned. Do you expect anyone to come in? I mean, me personally, it's just my opinion. I think United got to ship out a few players. I think Dalot might be one of those players. And there's questions about Dalot. Could he be the backup right back for Manchester United, or are we going for Kieran Trippier? But I think a couple have to go. And I think if United are going to bring in someone, let's say a Neves, that'll be very late in the window, maybe even deadline day.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Let's talk about the midfield as a kind of, again, 12 months moving forward, how United are going to play it and why they are where they are at the moment. So I think with Paul Pogba, we know that he wants to sign a contract. We know this. That's been out there for a long time. We also know that Manchester United did not offer him the wages that he wanted. So let's just do a little bit compare and contrast on that. Jack Grealish has just signed for Manchester City. Jack Grealish was offered more money by Manchester City than Manchester United are offering Paul Pogba at the moment. So let's take that as our base level. So what do you do with the midfield? If Donny van de Beek isn't your answer, so we're now talking very positively about Donny playing in the double pivot, and that's something that I think that he might be able to do going forward if he continues on his trajectory. Great. There is a kind of, I think, a feeling that if United and Pogba can come to some conclusion on their contract negotiations, and with Messi almost definitely signing for Paris Saint-Germain, despite financial fair play rules prohibiting it, but it's going to happen. If that happens, and then they can't afford Paul Pogba. So Paul Pogba is almost definitely going to be able to angle with Manchester United to get that deal. And he can actually now go and sit there and say, City have just signed a midfielder who's not as good as me, a midfielder that sat on the bench for the whole of the Euros and played for a mid-table club 5 minutes ago, and they gave him more money than you are giving me. I think that logic will probably get Paul Pogba the deal he wants. So if you keep Paul Pogba and you keep Donny van de Beek, there is probably every chance you're not going to sign a midfielder. Now, that will upset a lot of United fans. Everyone is hot on this idea of signing a defensive midfielder.
Destroyer Rob is what everyone's saying.
Well, yeah. Again, you know my opinion on this. I think the whole destroyer angle in football has gone. I don't think teams set up to have destroyers in their team. It's very rare that you have a progressive football team who have genuine destroyers. It's normally players who can do a little bit of everything. So I always use Fernandinho as the kind of answer to that with Manchester City. Fernandinho will kick you up in the air and he'll take yellow cards and red cards. He's not really a destroyer. He's actually quite a technical player.
He's a very good ball-playing defensive midfielder, Rob.
Well, he's not really even by trade a defensive midfielder. It's just what he does now because he's older. So like Roy Keane played much further back as he got older. But when Roy Keane was 23, Roy Keane was bombing forward like a crazy person trying to get on the end of headers from back post headers. So that's kind of how I think it is. I think when you look at Manchester United and the setup, you've got someone like Matic, who I think might have another year in him, but he will only play games when the opponent fits what he does. So it might be a slower build-up, it might be a lower block, etc. United don't play at low block much, but they might play in Europe or certain games in the Premier League, say against Manchester City. But I think when you kind of look at who's out there on the transfer market, and obviously you just said there about Neves, obviously Saul Niguez is the other name that's kind of being bandied around. Everyone got very excited about Camavinga. These are names that are potential signings, but you've got to do other things before you bring them in. And what that means is you need to sell players. So you saw today with the players that were actually featuring like the second half, you need to move on Andreas. He can't be at the football club if you bring in someone else. When you're looking at the wage bill, do you get someone like Tuanzebe to go to Aston Villa? They take his wage on. Do you then sell Lingard at the end of the window when he's only got maybe a year left on his contract? So that would be a reduced fee. There's all of these kind of little minutiae that needs to be corrected before you can say we're going to pop and buy that next midfielder for 30, 40, 50, 60 million. Camavinga is a possibility because of his price tag, which would be relatively affordable. If you bring him in, he's probably not going to play a lot of games, not at 18.
Well, quick question on Camavinga, because I've had a discussion with people about this, and fantastic talent. I agree with you. He's not going to come in and start straight away. It's going to take a little bit of time. He's still so young. He's 18, isn't he? But is there a bit of a concern? You're hearing a lot, Jonathan Barrett, his agent, is wanting to, he's almost pushing him towards United. He wants Spain. is there a bit of a concern that you're bringing a player in? We have Paul Pogba at the club. There's been a lot of talks he's wanted to leave for years. Are you not just repeating where you're almost a player doesn't really want to come to the club? He'd rather go PSG or Spain, and you bring him to the club, and then in 3 years' time, he's going to want out. Is that not a concern for you at all? Because we've seen this with Pogba and the almost circus that's been around Pogba with the agent. If United want to step away from that, isn't it better that maybe they look elsewhere than Camavinga? I think Camavinga is a fantastic talent. I'd love him, but this is the sort of thing that you maybe have to think about if the agent's pushing him towards Manchester United.
No, not at all. I disagree with you wholeheartedly. And the reason why I disagree is that first and foremost, football is a business. So, talk about players wanting to go places. All players want to come to Manchester United. It's the truth. Manchester United are one of the elite three in world football with Real Madrid and Barcelona, that when they kind of come calling, that there's no player that kind of goes, I don't really fancy it. They might have a preference elsewhere. So we know with Camavinga that he would like to play in La Liga. But I think when he looks at the sums and he looks at what his life would be like in England, maybe compared to if he was playing for Villarreal or somewhere like that, he might well have a different view on it. And that's why, as you're saying there, that his agent is pushing him towards England. So I don't worry about that kind of thing. So you can't project like that. You can't say, we're not signing this player because in 3 years' time he might leave. What? You can't build clubs like that. So we talk about the Pogba side. The circus doesn't necessarily come from Paul Pogba. Yes, it partly comes from his agent. We know this. But it comes from you lot out there watching this show. It comes from the fans and it comes from the media. It comes from that. That's the circus. That's where people get upset. So you mentioned Paul Pogba earlier on. Obviously going to look rusty. And he was rusty today. There's no doubt about it.
In the double, Rob, no surprises.
No surprises. So we're not going to talk about that too much. But Paul Pogba played today in the double pivot for about 12, 15 minutes and looked garbage, and then looked better forward up the other end of the pitch. However, most United fans will still say that they want Paul Pogba in a double pivot. So this is, I think, a kind of philosophical argument for Paul Pogba about what he wants to do. And he wants to play higher up the pitch. And I think Ole wants him to play higher up the pitch. So I think, we were just saying there about starting lineups and things like that. I think we will see Pogba play further forward, especially on the left while Rashford is out. I think that's an opportunity, especially if you play Sancho on the right. There is that to come. But I don't think Paul Pogba starts this week. And I also don't think Paul Pogba plays in this game today against Everton if there is any chance Manchester United are going to sell him. No chance that he gets involved in this game and United try and get him fit so they can sell him to PSG. He would have sat on the bench today, or he would have been mysteriously had a little injury and couldn't feature or whatnot, or would have been on holiday or something. He's part of the squad. He's getting ready for the new season. And there's two kind of ways with Pogba. There is the chance that United retain him. He stays for a year, and then they talk about a contract in a year. Now, that's very risky. I don't think the Glazers will do that.
No.
But I don't think the Glazers also have any kind of desire to sell him at this moment, because the player is saying he wants to stay. You're not selling an unhappy player.
The issue is, this is the thing, Rob, and this is what, this is how I read the situation. He's actually very happy at Manchester United. He's very happy on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We've obviously made two fantastic moves. There could be more coming through the door. This is probably the best Manchester United side there has been since he's been there. We're on the up. The issue is that he's not happy with the 350k a week. He thinks he should get more. And if you actually look at it, and you look at what David De Gea is on, he's got a point, hasn't he? He's got a point that David De Gea is on 450. If Paul Pogba is this elite player, he has not every right, but he's got a reason to say, you know what, I think I should have more.
Yeah.
Whether he deserves it or not, that's a different discussion. I don't want to get into that. But as one of the stars at Manchester United Football Club, he feels he should be the highest earning player. And he has every right to really say that, doesn't he?
The two players who deserve to be the most paid world players at Manchester United are two of them, Paul Pogba and Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah.
So they're the two players. But if you even take those two players as individuals, when you look at which one has the commercial impact on Manchester United to make profits, to be a richer football club, to be more competitive, because that player plays for you and you can take him and use him as part of your commercial offer to the world, then Paul Pogba is worth twice as much as Bruno Fernandes. That's just the truth. Bruno's maybe worth twice as much on a football pitch, and that's rightfully what fans should be looking at, and that's what this show is about, tactics, how we use players, and that's why we talk about Pogba in that context. But Paul Pogba, as an asset, is a much bigger asset than Bruno Fernandes in financial terms. So that means you do get paid more. It's just the way it is. It's the same reason why Ozil got the contract he did at Arsenal. You know, as an asset, he was bigger than everyone else at the football club. So I think when you look at Pogba, and I think now when you kind of look at the kind of balance with the Grealish move with Manchester City, which I think is an astonishing move simply because Jack Grealish is a £50 million midfielder who just went for £100 million from a mid-table football club.
Let's go into that, Rob. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Manchester City.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about them, yeah.
So for me, I really like Jack Grealish. We've had a lot of discussions about him. 100 million is a huge amount for a player. You know, Manchester United have just got Jadon Sancho and Raphael Varane for just a little bit more. So fantastic business by Manchester United. Does Jack Grealish move the needle for Manchester City towards, let's say, the Champions League? Because that's the next step for them. And let's say you add Harry Kane to the mix. What are your expectations from Manchester United? The way I look at it is this, Rob, that United should go into every season with the aspirations to win the Premier League because we're Manchester United. Realistically, for me, my expectations, I think United need to be in the title race by the latter stages. I'm talking, the last week or two. Let's say 5-6 points behind if they do finish second. You need to get out of the Champions League group. You need to get to the quarterfinals. I know this is all very sort of like, what's the
binary?
Word? Yeah, that's the word, binary. Your favorite word. But I think that represents progression because Manchester United haven't got out of the group stages and God knows how long in the Champions League. I think a trophy as well. But for me, looking at it now, I don't think Grealish changes the needle that much, although I think he's a fantastic player. I'm a massive fan of his. But I think if Harry Kane ends up at Manchester City, then I think it's going to be very difficult for everybody else.
I don't feel as... what's the word? I don't think it's as kind of cut and thrust as that, No, I just don't. I look at it like this. Harry Kane's a really good footballer. And if you sign Harry Kane, you're going to have to spend maybe now upwards of 150 million to go and get him, which is a lot of money for someone who gets injured 3 times a year. Jack Grealish is coming into a situation that he's never experienced before. Yeah. When you're at the real top clubs in this country, at the level that you have to perform at every week without fail, because, if you make one mistake, one pass wrong, TalkSport are doing 18 hours worth of coverage on it that you made a bad pass. That's something he's never had before. And I think that Jack Grealish, for him to justify this £100 million fee, he needs to do something in the realm of what Raheem Sterling did over a 3 or 4 year period. That's the only way you prove it. Yeah. You have to go and win titles and score goals and get assists. And someone like Raheem Sterling proved, like in the days when he went for 50 million, I think it was at that time, around that price, around 50 odd million.
Yeah,
and
everyone was laughing.
And people balked at that. And it took Raheem a long time to kind of prove the price tag. There's no doubt that 100 million is going to weigh heavy on Jack Grealish. And as good as I think he is, like you said, you're a fan of his. I'm a fan of his. I think he's a great player. I saw him score that goal at Old Trafford for Villa where he put it in the top corner. Beautiful finish. Do I truly believe that he has the consistency of the top level Manchester City players from, say, the last 2 or 3 or 4 years? And I'm talking about Sergio Aguero, Yaya Toure, David Silva. I'm talking about the elites, yeah, the real top players that go and get you.
Week out, they were doing it, Rob.
Week in, week out, trophy after trophy after trophy after trophy. When you lose, then you make sure you win the next week. Do I think Jack Grealish is that player? Honestly, no, I don't. I don't believe Jack Grealish is world class. I think Jack Grealish is top class. I think he's a really good player. And I think Manchester City have bought him for reasons other than just talent. I think that we are in the realms of a World Cup about to approach, and England footballers are going to be at a premium. They're going to sell that World Cup in Qatar. And there's no doubt that Manchester City want a piece of that pie. And if you have Jack Grealish, who is the baby face of English football at the moment, the person that the media love him. He's the darling of English football. Yes, he's talented, but no, he didn't even play for England. And when he did, he had 1 or 2 good games. Obviously, did get assists. But is he really £100 million? Really? No, I don't believe he is. So what does that mean? You're going to have to pay for Harry Kane a lot more than £100 million. Flip it over now to what we were just talking about City and United. Bringing in Jadon Sancho for the price that they did, £72 million, and you're obviously looking at the Varane price of hovering around 40. I'm happier with that business.
That's £72 million. Remember, he was going for 120
But
last year.
but that shows that price itself was an inflated, made-up price by Dortmund. He's not worth it. No, I don't think many players are. So you've got to kind of like balance the books with everything, whether it be your commercial offer, how you're going to win on a football pitch, what the player can give to you going forward. But I would definitely say Jadon Sancho is a better player than Jack Grealish. I believe that in footballing terms. I think when you look at the signing of Varane, I think Varane will impact United in the same way that Kane will impact City. So Kane will score lots of goals, but I think Varane will help United win more matches than say Lindelof. So that's the balancing point. It's not always about the money and about how much you spend. It's about the kind of logic behind the transfers and about does it take you to the next level.
Where does Grealish play, Rob? Because I've been thinking about this. Where does he play off the left?
No, he plays on the bench.
You think he's going to sit on the bench? He's better than Phil Foden.
Is he?
Yeah.
Was his stats better than Phil Foden last year?
Well, I don't have it on me. If anyone has the stats, let me get them up.
No, but the stats are here, right? Phil Foden had a better season than Jack Grealish last year. So that doesn't matter because Jack Grealish is playing, as I keep saying, for a mid-table team. So you would expect Jack Grealish to do more in a mid-table team than maybe against Foden for a Manchester City side, who are obviously playing teams that are sitting deeper, lower, playing more defensively, trying to cut your route off. I think Phil Foden, for most of this last season, was Manchester City's top scorer for the whole campaign. So that was with him coming in and out the side, top scorer in all competitions. So I think when you look at the fact of having Foden at your disposal, Sterling at your disposal, Bernardo Silva's going to leave the football club. Raheem Mahrez will probably leave the football club now, though he said he wants to stay and fight for his place. But then you've got Kevin De Bruyne. What are you going to do with all of these creatives? How are you going to form a front 6 or 7 to really kind of have the balance to go and win games every week whilst protecting your defence? Jack Grealish doesn't press the ball great. I think he does it all right. He does okay. He does it okay, but he's not really a kind of energetic pressing star midfielder. He's busy. He doesn't particularly have pace, so he's not going to exploit the channel on the left for City. But he will obviously provide assists. He does have talent in that terms. He is a creator, and creation is part of Manchester City's game. But then, are you telling me that there isn't going to be week to week where Foden's form isn't better than Grealish and Grealish sits on the bench? I don't believe that's the case. Just because Grealish comes in for £100 million, I always look at it in isolation. Which player would I want in my team? I think I'd prefer Phil Foden. I think he gives you more things in terms of the way he has output, the way he creates, but also maybe plays a better line, maybe joins the dots a little bit more. Grealish can play on the left-hand side of an attack, and people talk about him playing as a number 10. When did he last play as number 10? None of you can remember because he hasn't played it for ages. He plays off the left. He plays off the left, and he needs a striker inside him to link.
A bit like the position that Pogba was playing for Manchester United this season.
It plays it differently, but absolutely, he plays on the left-hand side of a forward line. That's what he does, and that's what he's done for a long time. Really, since the time he's come into the Premier League with Villa, up from the Championship, he's played on the left. He's never played as number 10. So this dream of him now playing behind Harry Kane and then being the 9 and the 10, dream on. It's not going to happen, because if it does happen, it will take a long time to formulate, to get them to kind of work in tandem, and that will mean Man City lose the title. Yeah, you can't take risks, So this is the problem that United have had when you're trying to integrate players, is that if Donny van de Beek isn't cutting it, he has to go and sit on the bench. So I think there is a big chance that if Grealish doesn't come in and hit the ground running immediately, and I think he might start well, but then it's about whether he can maintain it through the season. And Pep rotates more than any other coach. So Pep's not going to be scared to go, well, you're £100 million, but you're going to sit on the bench for 3 weeks. He'll just do that. He will do that. I don't think Grealish comes in and becomes the marquee player. He might be on the highest wages at Manchester City, pretty much. I think he's on more than De Bruyne from this team. It is mad. It's crazy. If Man United signed Grealish, I would have been like, yep, look in the kind of ballpark of 60 to 70 million and maybe wages of 2 to 250. That would have been right.
And was on more than Bruno Fernandes and Paul.
Well, he would have been. He's on more money than those players now at Man City. So I know a lot of people have talked about financial fair play this week and also talked about how that works and why City have been allowed to get away with it.
Rob, I'm going to bring up a comment quickly because this actually is a good comment here. And it says here, I've thought maybe that City are worried they're going to be slapped with a transfer ban. They're still under investigation, doing their big shop now just in case. Elaborate on that.
Potentially, but potentially there is that. The problem with that is that if they have broken the rules and then they flagrantly continue to break the rules, and they will know that they are, then if you get a ban, it's going to be a huge one, and you're going to pay for it. And I think really what the truth is with this is that financial fair play doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's not stringently advised by FIFA and UEFA. It's not implemented correctly. And the truth is that football, and when I talk about football, I'm talking about governing bodies. Governing bodies want these trillionaire owners from the Middle East, specifically from the oil nations, to pump their money into their sport. That's the truth. So they might give people slaps on the wrists, but we've seen it with PSG, we've seen it with Manchester City. They continue to spend. But I think £100 million on Jack Grealish, which was his release clause, that's why they had to pay that. I think that it might well have been 50 to 100% over his value. I really do believe that. But City have done that and they've taken him. But I do think they've taken him for reasons of having a marquee player as opposed to maybe a player that wins you the titles. City still think that he will be part of title winning teams. But as a United fan, I'm happy about that. I don't mind Jack Grealish being on the left of Manchester City's attack and saying to Aaron Wan-Bissaka, go and kick him in the stands, Aaron.
But also, a comment here saying, look, I'd take Sancho any day of the week. Sancho is what Manchester United needed. So Man United made the right choice. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, well, why are we not going for Grealish? Because we needed someone to play on the right. And I think Sancho fits the way Ollie plays, the way that United want to play better than Jack Grealish. I'm a massive Jack Grealish fan. And I am quite disappointed that he's gone to City. It is what it is. I'm not going to cry about it. But I do think that for what you're looking, what City have and what United have, Sancho moves United closer to City rather than Grealish going in and taking City further away from United, if that makes sense. I think United have gained more by bringing a player like Sancho, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you can stop Grealish and Kane. I think that you can stop them. I think you can find ways defensively through your midfield, through your double pivot and through your centre-backs and your right-back to stop that combination. Then I would have said going back over time with someone like Sergio Aguero, who on his day you can't stop. So Harry Kane on his day, you can't stop. We know he's one of the, say, top 3 or 4 strikers in the world. But it's the chemistry, Haider, of the whole attack. And I think that if you're putting all your eggs in that basket and saying it's these 2 England internationals, and these are the 2 players who are going to win us the title, win us the Champions League, take us to the next level, as a football journalist, as someone who watches football all the time, I don't feel it. I think they're good players and they might do very, very well. But at the price... come on, 170 million 270 million for these 2 players. I'm not interested. Jadon Sancho at 72 million could turn out to be incredible value. Varane at 28 years old at that price bracket could be incredible value. We're not here to judge value. We're here to judge the team when they're on the football pitch. And I believe that Manchester United's team now, with the setup that they've got, even with just these 2 transfers, are closer to Manchester City than they would be, say, 12 months ago, 24 months ago. Even now, with Grealish in the City team, I don't look at that and have fear. I might feel different in 6 months. We might see Grealish and be going, oh, wow, look at him. He's world class. I don't believe Jack Grealish is world class. He's top class. He's not world class.
Yeah, good point here, Rob. And let's just quickly touch on Lukaku as well, because he's agreed apparently to Chelsea for. I'm laughing because it's just absolutely great. 115 million. It seems to be. I don't know if that's euros or pounds. You might know better than me. I believe it has been agreed just while we were on the podcast. Romelu Lukaku, does he make Chelsea infinitely better? Now, this isn't the Romelu Lukaku that was at Manchester United. He was, he wasn't a disaster at Manchester United, but he definitely wasn't a raging success. Played under a manager that knew how to get the best out of him. Looked trimmer as well. Looked more athletic. He's been a fantastic striker. You can't argue with his goal scoring record. That's obscene money for Romelu Lukaku. I'm sorry. I mean, you're just trying to think now, how much is Haaland going to, if someone signed Haaland, how much would he be? I'd much rather prefer a player like Haaland, but looking at Lukaku, does he push Chelsea closer to the title? Because I think you got to have a look at the top 4 teams, I think, in the Premier League next season will be Manchester City, Manchester United, in no particular order, Chelsea and Liverpool. I think they're the 4 teams that will be vying for the title. Unless miraculously some of the other teams do. I think Tottenham are going to struggle. Arsenal, I think they're going to struggle. I think those are the top 4. Should fans be slightly worried? Not worried, but should they be looking at Chelsea and thinking, Thomas Tuchel's now got a striker. Could Chelsea be a side that could be battling for the title? They are Champions League winners as well, Rob.
Of course they are. Of course they're in the title picture, 100%. And with Lukaku, they are a better team. So you just said there it's not the same Romelu Lukaku that was at Man United. It is. It's the same guy. It's no different. It's the same player that does the same things that he always has done. He hasn't done anything differently. So like you just said there stylistically about what Conte did with him in Italy, there's no doubt that the Inter system allowed Lukaku to be more of just a striker. But what was it? What was it at United? He was a striker. He was a number 9. That's what he does. He doesn't do other things. He drops in and out a little bit. He might drop in the channel, but he isn't a kind of modern striker. But what he will do is score you goals all the time, week after week after week. So when you look at Chelsea, their weakness really last year was putting the ball in the back of the net at times. And obviously Werner struggled. I don't think that this is the end of Werner at Chelsea. I think that he will probably just maybe play in the wider channel, or they might rotate him and Lukaku. Chelsea are stronger with someone like Romelu Lukaku, who is already Premier League ready. He knows what goes on in his country. He's got plenty of experience, and he is one of the best strikers in the world. And when United sold him, he was one of the best strikers in the world. The reason why we sold him is he does not fit the United way, the way that we want to play the game, the way that Ole wanted to play. That is why he left. So I've got plenty of respect for Romelu. I still think he's a really, really good player. Again, I'm not interested in the price. The reason why they've paid that price is to just get the player out of the club. They want to need money. They've had problems with their ownership, and kind of when you're putting that kind of cash on the table, that also shows Chelsea are exactly the same as City. You know, they're owned by an oil baron, and oil money talks. So Chelsea are putting up that cash. They had a big summer last year with their transfers, and now they're doing it with Lukaku. But Lukaku might be the only real true addition. So there's other parts of that Chelsea team that do need fixing. They need transfers.
They might get Koundé. It looks like they're quite interested in him. So that maybe
yeah, and the thing is, like Koundé's reputation and value are really high at the moment in terms of what he did at Sevilla. But Koundé doesn't come into the league and do what Ruben Dias does. He doesn't. He just doesn't.
I'm also not convinced, Rob. Like
he's a project.
He is. Yeah, 100%.
He's a project. So you do that. So you still like him. He's a good player. You know, you just, again, this is the whole thing about when you buy players, everyone thinks, oh, does that player get you over the top, get you over the line? Well, sometimes it does. And sometimes it just gets you closer to the line. So I think with Chelsea, with Lukaku, and if they bought Koundé, they'll be much closer to the line. Do that make them automatic Premier League champions? No, I don't think so. Because I think actually it showed last year that even though Tuchel fixed the defensive issues at Chelsea, which obviously won them the Champions League, there were still issues game to game that he needs to fix through his midfield. So that would still be present. I actually think United are closer to the line. So with the two players that United have bought in terms of being elite players, I think that Jadon Sancho is on the cusp of being a true world-class forward. His stats show that, and obviously what he's done over 2 or 3 years show that.
He's one of the best. He has been one of the best right wingers for the last 3 years.
And whether Raphael Varane is successful or not, which we will wait and see, is Raphael Varane a world-class defender? We don't need to discuss it because
look at the trophy cabinet. That's it.
You just got to get all his Champions League trophies out and his World Cup. So you know he is a proven player. If he can do it for Man United, people would say, well, Di Maria was a proven player, Falcao was a proven player. You know these players can come in. Well, it's different. It's different because it's time when they're coming in their career and what they're looking to do over the next 2, 3, 4 years. So I think Varane is coming to United to win. So I like those two signings. I think they're closer to the title and closer to City than Chelsea are with Lukaku. And I also think that if Grealish is your marquee signing and you don't get Harry Kane, I think that gap closes even further because Grealish will do well for City probably. But as I said, I think he'll be integrated into a squad system as opposed to being a kind of 25 assists and maybe 17 goals a season player. That is not going to happen. And I think he'll still play second fiddle to De Bruyne. I think De Bruyne still runs that club and De Bruyne will be linking up with whoever the striker will be, whether that be Torres is already there or Jesus or even Harry Kane. And I think the 100 million guy will just be part of that system.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a question here, Rob. I know we don't want to go too much into sort of transfers and stuff, but you know, Lukaku at Chelsea, let's say Kane at City next summer, Haaland, Man United having a fairly free run at him. Obviously, you've got PSG, who seem to have an endless pool of cash. Barcelona are a mess. Real Madrid look like they're a mess. They want Mbappe. So, you know, could Manchester United actually get that man? You look at the previous relationship. I actually tweeted about this, I think, earlier on in the week. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's relationship with him, the fact that the other teams that want a striker, they're looking to have other targets. And also, I think Haaland fits United's system really, really well. So, is that a possibility for next summer? I think he'd be a great fit at Manchester United. I'm not just saying that. I think if you look at Kane, Haaland, and Lukaku, I think Haaland is the one that fits the system the best.
Okay, let's look at it like this. Chelsea spent a significant amount of time over the summer trying to tempt Dortmund to sell Haaland to them. So everyone knew they wanted a striker. The fact that they're now going to spend an incredible amount of money on Lukaku tells you what they think about what's going on there with Dortmund. Yeah, it's not happening now. Chelsea want a striker now. They're not prepared to wait. Manchester City want a striker now. They might be prepared to wait if Harry Kane's fee is ridiculous, and it is going to be ridiculous. So you kind of think to yourself, what do United do? What United are going to buy a striker now? We know that that's not the case. They're not looking for a striker. Where do we stand in the pantheon of this story? Where do we go? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was given a contract, a big contract, obviously that a lot of United fans did not like. And one of the main reasons for that was that they wanted to show certain transfer targets that this manager is going to be at the football club long term. And one of those transfer targets is the guy you're just talking about. So if Haaland comes to England, he's got options. There will also be the option of PSG. PSG might not be able to do a deal with Mbappe, and that might change their outlook as to what they want to do, how they structure their team. So they don't play the same position, obviously, but it's about goals and about how do you score goals and how you set up. So PSG are an option there. Obviously, they've got lots of money. But I think when it comes down to it, it's Manchester United or one. And the one at the moment might be City, but if City buy Kane, then they're really showing the marketplace what they want to do. And I think that all happens in 12 months. So United do want Haaland. That's not new. Haaland, I think, is interested in coming to the Premier League. That's not new. Haaland is also good mates with Jadon Sancho. That's not new.
They're also they work very well on the pitch. That's a big thing.
They work very well on the pitch. Again, I don't know they're the kind of deciding factors when we talk about players. Players enjoy those relationships with players they play well with, of course. But I think like what you said there is more important, that he fits United's system. So he would come in a 4-2-3-1. United wouldn't have to do anything. That might be the case that in 12 months' time you decide to sell Anthony Martial if it hasn't worked.
Cavani goes as well.
Cavani walks out the football club. There gives you about £500,000 in wages just in those two players. And it means that you can go all out for that player and go and get him. And he would probably be then ready to move. Like, he's not ready to move at the moment. We know this. As you mentioned there, Real Madrid and Barcelona. Real Madrid and Barcelona are about to fall off the footballing world cliff. Yeah, literally like driving off the edge of it. Not into the abyss.
Why they needed the Super League, wasn't it, Rob?
They needed the Super League. Look. We talked about this at the time. The reason why the European clubs, the European mainland football clubs, wanted the Super League was that they know that all the money goes to the English clubs, and they wanted a bit of it. And it was the only way they could balance the books. And they gambled on being able to kind of strong arm the football world to do it. And of course, it all fell apart because all the fans said no. So Real Madrid and Barcelona are in a position now where they're going to have to organically rebuild their football clubs, maybe over a 5 or 6 year period. They will still buy good players, no doubt about that, but they will not be able to compete with, like, look at this, £100 million for Grealish. Who could Real Madrid spend £100 million on at the moment? It's kind of like, it's almost like City showing these giants, we can go and buy squad players for £100 million. You can't go and get your biggest target for 50. So this is where we sit with world football now. And I think with Haaland, he might want to go and play for Real Madrid or Barcelona. But I tell you what, in 12 months' time, those two football clubs are going to be even a worse place than they are now. And Manchester United are in a pretty good place financially. Manchester City are in a good place financially. And all the English clubs are relatively strong. You might include Liverpool in that mix. In Liverpool, in 12 months, sell Salah and Mane, and there's every chance they will. Those two players will probably leave that football club, and that means
they do need to probably do a bit of a rebuild. They are coming.
They might rebuild in around that. You might see that they might try and target someone like Haaland, and I think Klopp's very good at persuading players, so that would be difficult. However, Haaland and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the truth is, they are like that. They know each other. They like each other. He does look at him as a godfather figure. The Norwegian connection. The issue is his dad. His dad doesn't particularly like Manchester United, and that is a big thing. and Haaland did grow up as a Manchester City stroke Leeds fan, but also he's an English guy. People forget this, that Haaland was born in this country. He's effectively English. So he knows the Premier League. He knows English culture. He knows the ways and the means. It's just because he plays, obviously, for Norway does not mean that he doesn't know it. And I think he's ready. I think in a year's time, especially if United do well, if United have another good season like they did last year, if United came second or got closer to City or showed tangible progress, maybe won a cup competition, did well in the Champions League, you suddenly just kind of skip forward a heartbeat. And you could then kind of get someone like Haaland to be your Robin van Persie, the guy that finishes your project to get you over the line to win a championship.
Absolutely, Rob. Let's move on to the Leeds game and the system. So it hasn't been the best preparation for the preseason, I don't think. I think there have been, obviously, with the Euros. We knew this was going to happen. Players haven't come back. It doesn't look like Sancho or Varane will play in the opener, or they might be on the bench, and you can probably confirm that. But how do you expect Man United to set up? Because we know with Leeds, something that Bielsa did in that second game when it was a 0-0 at Ellen Road was that he very rarely changes his system. We know with Bielsa, he'll go with the high press system, the man marking system. But after United beat them 6-2, he changed his system. So that's going to be interesting for Manchester United. Do they go with the similar sort of formation they played today? Do they have Van der Beek playing in there? I think, a high press, high energy Leeds team, that's going to be a real test for him. Do you expect him to go with Martial at number 9? I mean, what do you think that United are going to do for that game?
I think there's some real obvious pointers, and we'll kind of pull them apart quickly here towards the end of the show. Let's just talk about Sancho and Varane's availability. And again, fancy to kind of grasp reality with this. Varane is in quarantine at the moment. I think he even put something today on his social media. He kind of showed that he was watching the game. He showed that he was watching the friendly. He's obviously he's integrating into English life, and
he's feeding his little daughter, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's watching the game, and of course he's being prepared for all of those things. And I think, again, reading the press and reading what people are saying, there's this kind of thing that people perceive that United are not doing that. United are not integrating these players. Now, when you look at Sancho, he would have he'd have had his physical, he'd have had all of that, and United would have made a call through that physical report of what the boy needs. Yeah, and they might have looked at his physicality and gone, you need some extra time off. Now, people say he didn't play much at the Euros. That's true. He sat on the bench, but he played a lot of football last year. So it might just be the case that he needs an extra week. And we're talking a week, Haider. We're not talking. Sorry.
He also missed a penalty. Like, emotionally, to get over that, and
look, I think he's over that, right? I don't think that now when he's thinking about his new football club, he's thinking about the penalty he missed. So I think that's one thing. But I think the other thing is that people think he should be involved today. So people have said that. They've gone, why is he not involved today and Paul Pogba is? So Paul Pogba was at the World Cup. So why is Paul Pogba ready? Well, the physical report, the sports science will dictate whether Paul Pogba is available to play today. So that's why I think Jadon Sancho is not at the football club at this moment. So will Jadon Sancho be, on the bench at Manchester United against Leeds? No, he's not going to be there. He's not ready. He'll have to come into the team. He'll have to integrate. Same with Varane. Varane is in quarantine. He can't train in quarantine. He can sit on an exercise bike in his hotel room or wherever they've got him holed up, but he's not ready to play 90 minutes or even 45 minutes or top-class professional English Premier League football. It's not happening. So they will be integrated in the coming weeks. You talked there about Leeds and what Leeds did last season. When Leeds came to us and wanted to play that side, or when we played them and played their pressing game, we gave them a proper hiding. And Bielsa, for the first time in the whole league, changed his system and did a little bit more more cautious work. And they played well, and we found it much more difficult. I think Bielsa, in the first game of the season, is going to come out all guns blazing. He'll come to Old Trafford. They're going to play the high press. Because if they lose 5-0 again, no one really blinks. The pressure's on United, not on Leeds. Leeds are still a mid-table team who people expect to be around that kind of 10th, 11th, 12th spot, and anything above is a bonus. So there's no pressure on Bielsa or Leeds. The pressure is on our football club. And I think that he'll want to come out there and make a statement. So he'll have his guys ready to do what Leeds do well, and United will have to soak that up. United might have to play more transition football. United might have to kind of do something a little bit more that we don't want them to do, like it might be a little bit deeper and kind of play on a counter attack. And we might be like, oh, we want 4-3-3, boo hoo hoo, but we're not going to see that. It's about the opponent as well. And I think Leeds will be ready for that. And I think United will probably start with pretty much the team that started today against Everton. I think the team you saw today, positionally, man for man, I think Dan James will probably start. That will upset people. I think you'll probably see Mason on the right. That will upset people. I think Martial is ready to start games, and that showed today, so he will start. I think Pogba will be on the bench because he's not in the right place. And I think you'll see Lindelof and Maguire be the starting centre-backs with the starting full-backs who are there all the time with Wan-Bissaka and Shaw.
Pretty ahead to start, Rob.
Absolutely, because Henderson's not trained, so Henderson's had COVID. So you know, again, when people think about tactical selections and stuff like that, sometimes there are other reasons why you can't even think about the tactics because they're just not ready or they're not in the place to do it. And I think today David Hayes starting today and playing that role kind of shows that he's got the gloves. He's ready to play. He also sat on the bench during the Euros, a little bit different for a goalkeeper. And he's kind of, you know, mentality wise, I think if he's going to stay at the football club and they're not going to sell him, then that means he will also start games. So it might be in and out now and then, but Henderson might be the guy that misses out. But at the moment, Henderson's not fit.
Absolutely, Rob. And let's move on to the final word. Guys, thank you so much for all your comments and all your questions. It's been fantastic. Myself and Rob are back. The Masterclass will be back every single week. So make sure you spread the word. You tune in, give us a retweet and a share. You know, that really helps us get this podcast out to more people. Rob, how are you feeling going into the season? I know we've spoken positively. I really do feel positive, and I needed, I sort of needed to see who would come in through the door to feel that way, if I'm honest with you. And I'm really encouraged by the fact that Sancho and Varane have two fantastic players. It's going to be great to see Harry Maguire and Varane. I'm really excited. And something that was very positive, and we saw it again. I know Maguire scored the header, which was great. But again, that link up between Shaw and Maguire was pivotal for England during the Euros. It's been pivotal for Manchester United. It's growing and it's developing. And it seems Ollie's made the right decision to go and get Varane and keep Maguire on that left-hand side. I'm looking at that back four now going into season. I'm thinking, okay, Varane won't start maybe the first couple of games, but I'm thinking straight away, stronger back four. You need that foundations to win the title. And I'm looking at the rest of the team. I'm seeing a lot of exciting talent. I think this is the best Manchester United team on paper. I'm not going to say because obviously football's not played on paper, but best team that we've seen since Sir Alex. And I think that United fans should be positive and should just be getting behind the team because who knows what's going to happen this season. You know, we are in the season after the Euros as well. There are players coming back in dribs and drabs. And if United can get a really good start, and that's what I want to see this season, anything is possible.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, we know that United's start last season wasn't particularly good, and that was definitely circled around fitness issues with certain players. And we know obviously Harry Maguire had his issues 12 months ago when he was out on holiday, and that impacted his start back at the football club. I am buoyed by the transfer activity and the additions, and I also look at it in a kind of more widescreen way that if you bring in two, if they improve 6 other positions because of the way they play, then you really are kind of going in the correct direction. And like you said there, I think Varane does move the needle for the back four for Manchester United in terms of how good they could be. In the same way that Diaz did at City, you know, he came to the team. He's a good player on his own, but when you put him in that back 5 or 6, you know, you improve everything. You become much more stronger in terms of clean sheets and try to win football matches. So I believe that Varane does that. I think Sancho, his creation rate and the way that he actually plays the game fits Manchester United stylistically. And he's going to improve the striker on the inside, the number 10 on the inside, and the fullback going on the outside. So this is kind of like, we're talking at 8 positions there, Haider. You know, we're talking about back 4, front 4. You know, these things can have a profound effect on you in a very short space of time. Now, can United win the title this season? If City are going the route of Grealish and Kane, and that's the route that they can only go in now, that's kind of where they've kind of dug their flag, their mast in there and said, this is what we want to do in terms of building our next team. They're going to do that. They're going to sell Silva. They're going to sell Mahrez. And there are players leaving that football club. They've lost Sergio Aguero already. Do I feel that Manchester United are closer to City on paper? Yes. But as I say all the time, you don't have to beat Manchester City every week. You have to beat the other 19 teams in the division, the other 18 sides. You got to kind of beat them home and away, and that is the goal. Yeah,
that's a big
I look at this Manchester United squad, and are they better than those other 18? Well, in the last 6, 7, 8 years, the truth of the matter is no. That, you know, there's always been maybe at least one, including Manchester City, or maybe even 2 or sometimes 3 teams who are more settled and are better as a unit than Manchester United. And that's why United have been hovering around 4th, 5th or 6th, because they deserve to be 4th, 5th or 6th. So if they were 4th, 5th or 6th this year, that means that this manager will be sacked. There's no doubt about it. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will not survive another season. He will not be afforded extra time. You know, they're giving him players of the correct quality, and Ole has to now go and prove it. So the bare minimum this season is a title challenge. I don't get too caught up on trophies in the way that, like we talked about before. So if you win an FA Cup, doesn't really mean too much to me, but winning a trophy is a desirable thing. You want that, you know, players like it, etc., etc., etc. But are Manchester United closer to the top dog because of what they've done now in the last few weeks? I believe that they are. And I'm very, very excited to go to Old Trafford and see this team and see what it looks like. And even just the snippets that you saw today, if Donny van der Beek can play the double pivot, we're in business. Yeah.
Then you're already better than last season.
If Paul Pogba signs a contract and says, I'm here for another 3 years, I'm committed and I'm going, we're in business. You know, if Varane settles very, very quickly and that helps Harry Maguire next to him, we're in business. So all of these things are kind of, they look like individual players and you kind of think about that, but it's not. It's much wider than that. And again, one of my favorite words, the holistic approach to squad building, is that United are now on the tip. They're getting closer to City, and City have now got to play their card. And their card, number one, is £100 million Jack Grealish. And Jack Grealish now has to carry that football club and that expectation and prove that he's a £100 million player. And for me, I doubt that.
Absolutely. And Rob, look, just to let the listeners know as well, we've got some very exciting things on this channel. So if you're watching this on Twitter, come over to YouTube and subscribe, because there will be more content. I don't know if you want to share that, Rob, today. Do you want to share that?
Yes, yeah, we've got some new shows starting. We've been overwhelmed with the success of the Masterclass, the kind of figures, the viewing figures for all the shows across all the platforms that we're on. And we're on everything from YouTube through to Spotify to Twitch and everything else in between. We've been delighted with it. So we've kind of decided to expand, and obviously the people that support us on this channel. We're going to be doing 2 extra shows that you're going to see on this channel. And again, obviously everywhere else where you normally follow us on Twitter mainly, and obviously YouTube. There's going to be one show, which is going to be a fantasy league show. It's about FPL. So we've talked about that in the past. Me and Haider both love playing FPL. I've played it for forever, basically since the day one. I've been a top...
Before I was born, Rob.
I've been a top 0.1% player in the world for a long time, on and off. So I've always been in that kind of top 10,000 bracket across the 8 million players. So I've always written about fantasy football as well. So we're going to do a show on that, and you'll see that every week. So if you've just put your fantasy league team in, please look out for our shows before each deadline week for the game weeks. And you'll also see our own league there that's on Twitter that we've already put out. So please join that. I think at the moment we've got about 1,000 players in that. The winner of that league will get a shirt of their choice. So if you're a Manchester United fan, and you probably are if you're watching this, you can get yourself one of those 3 lovely new United shirts, and we'll provide that for you as a prize. And then the other show we'll be doing, which is something I talked about last year, is the United Robcast. So it's going to be a daily show, which you'll find here, kind of 15 or 20 minutes on Manchester United transfer business, and also talking forward about players and individuals and tactics, not like the Masterclass, but maybe in a more focused way, and kind of giving you some of my opinion on that, almost a little bit like Twitter in a video form, but also a kind of podcast. So you'll see that on your Twitter timelines moving forward. You'll be able to watch it live on Twitter every day. We'll have varying time slots because we'll work around obviously the football news and what's going on that day. But we'll talk obviously, like today, it might be about the Everton game, and we might be talking about, you know, why Varane is holed up in a hotel room for 20 minutes, and kind of give you those snippets of information that you want from Twitter that you always go there for. So that will be what the Robcast is about. You can follow me on my Twitter feed, which I'm sure most of you do here, _Rob _B. And of course, there's also the United Robcast as a Twitter account, and of course our TF Masterclass Twitter account. So please follow us all there, and you'll see it all coming out now over the next week. And we hope that you join us and support us in exactly the same way that you've joined this show and helped push it on to become what it's become.
Absolutely. And like I said, you know, you'll be able to get your Rob fix Monday to Friday for about 20 minutes. So look, we are growing, and we really do appreciate all the support. It's been absolutely overwhelming, and it's allowed us then to start to bring you the content. And, you know, there's a few things that, you know, we've got a few other shows in mind. So when that is released as well, we'll be keeping you updated. And look, guys, thank you so much again let's be positive. It's a really exciting time for Manchester United fans, after the last 7 or 8 years, Rob. And make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you tell everyone about this show, because we'll be going live every single week, and we'll see you all next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.